This week's episode of Schauer Thoughts is sponsored by Quince. Father's Day gifting is always the same story for me. Socks, more socks, grill tools, a grill, repeat. This year, I wanted to do better. I found Quince and they made buying a thoughtful gift easy. Quince has all the pieces dads actually want to wear, like organic cotton silk polos, European linen beach shorts, and comfortable pants that work for everything from weekend hangouts to nice dinners. For the dad who deserves better than basic, Quince has you covered. Go to quince.com/shower for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/shower to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/shower.
Well, hello guys. This is Sarah Schauer with Schauer Thoughts, the podcast for left and right brainers, middle brainers, people with the brain stem, peripheral nervous system, central. Yeah, so anyone with the brain who'd like a nice, refreshing perspective on something, Schauer, that's my last name. Don't wear it out. No. So today's podcast episode, I kind of technically already recorded, but I thought I could do a better job at it. It's on the nonchalance of it all. There's this obsession online with being nonchalant, and I am an incredibly chalant. It's not technically a word, but it's kind of our culture's obsession with being nonchalant. Now I do have a disclaimer. If you are naturally nonchalant, or you're someone who has more flat affect or flat, tone, then this is not about you. I know that my community is deeply autistic, as am I, right? I understand, if you don't get super animated when you speak. My more complaint about it has to do with people sort of adopting nonchalance to appear nonchalant, like cool, calm, collected, when they're not really. And the thing is I have talked about it before, but truth is stranger than fiction. And so, if you're pretending to be nonchalant in order to be mysterious, I don't know if that's how that works, right? Because anyone who's ever read a mystery novel knows that most great mysteries start with some inciting event, right? And then, usually towards the first couple chapters, if, the main character really gives us nothing and they're just kind of maintaining an air of mystery, but there's no real mystery, it's kind of well, then what is this book about? But I understand if, you're naturally nonchalant. I did want to talk about that. There are some, conditions in which people do actually have, I think it's called, very flat affect. Let me see. What is it called? Reduced affect display. What it is, science, types, and dealing with it. It's an actual article about reduced affect display. I am usually I try to be more animated when I speak, even though maybe it's not as natural to me. Something I was talking about about a year ago is I don't really watch the Housewives series, any of them, but sometimes when I do watch it, I get this I know that they have Botox, but for the longest time when I watch any sort of Housewives show, I was are these women autistic? And the only reason why I say that is because a lot of autistic people don't move their forehead as much. I think it's kind of more unnatural to raise your eyebrows. And so they, due to their Botox, they had a lack of emotional affect. And so for me, it was registering as autistic. And I, as someone with autism, I was oh, that, but then I realized, oh, it's, the work being done. I did want to get us all warmed up, as you do with the Schauer Thoughts. The books I brought today, I just wanted to discuss. I think I've discussed them before, but let me talk about it. So I'm really focusing on Your Brain on Art. I did finish Attention Beyond Mindfulness by Gay Watson. So good if you are trying to get into mindfulness. Because here's the thing, mindfulness is a skill. It's also a practice originating in Eastern cultures, and they're largely collectivist cultures. And so whenever an American therapist online or in your life says just practice mindfulness, that would be like someone saying just practice Spanish. You would be okay, so anyone can probably learn mindfulness or Spanish, but they are skills. If you're not going to go in depth on like the nuances and how to actually achieve that, then it's kind of just not really helpful at all. So just practice mindfulness doesn't make sense. If you'd like to get more into it, it is the spiritual and then the neuroscience of it. I know that we have every type of community listening to this. I think it's a really great hybrid, and I would strongly recommend it. I love it. It talked about, visual attention, oral attention, which is like, hearing, and then embodied attention. And I've been really getting into embodied attention because the thing is a lot of people feel like their thoughts are disconnected from their feelings. And I do actually have, I have explained that kind of like briefly in the past, but after like studying the nervous system, I have clinical neuroanatomy made ridiculously simple. I love it. I've been going through it just kind of like for fun and, studying the spinal cord and like the brainstem. It's so cool. After this, I do really, really want to get into electrical engineering. And I said that on my Instagram stories and people were like, if you like both of those, you should get into biomedical engineering. And I was like, well, then guys, give me book recommendations. And when I said that, everyone's like, they're textbooks. So like, I don't really have any like fun casual reading about biomedical or electrical engineering. And I was like, well, then give me the textbooks. I have ordered textbooks before. I think the most recent textbook I got was, it was on symbolic logic, which is like, it's symbolic logic. It's hard to explain, but yeah, I've been going through that and I love that. So I'm down to read a textbook or two. Will I read it fast? Absolutely not, but I loved it. So, and then I also have Neurotoggle, which is another book that I recommended a while back, Fostering Neurodivergent Minds Through Neuroplasticity Strategies. And this is a really great book if you're neurodivergent or you're the parent, especially of a neurodivergent child, and you want to help them learn and understand, and you don't just want to like push them through the American education system without any sort of like know-how on how to accommodate them or like advise, teachers or, get them things that are accessible for them to understand and learn at their own pace, at their own way, and so I've been going through that as well. I am a huge fan. I think it was written, this is like self-published though. So sometimes I'll be going through the book and it has like actual citations right next to, like example, this one says, so instead of just thinking as individual synapses as the units where memory is stored, we can think of dendritic branches as the key memory units. These branches allow for more complex and specialized storage of memory information. And then it has the actual like author right next to it, et al. 2023. So the sources are like literally included in this, which I really, really enjoy. But it's so fun. And then Your Brain on Art, because I love any sort of intersection of art and science. I've said that before. Something really flattering but completely incorrect that someone commented the other day was someone was making this video about the lack of polymaths. And a polymath is basically like someone who is like a Da Vinci sort of person. They're like someone who fuses sort of art and sciences. I actually could look up some famous polymaths to give you an example. And one second, like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Aristotle. Ew, Elon Musk is on this list. He is absolutely not a polymath. He is not at all. There's Benjamin Franklin, Galileo, Marie Curie, Thomas Jefferson, yeah. And so Ada Lovelace, I love her. So the greatest polymath of all time is Leonardo da Vinci. I actually did want to read the Wikipedia definition of what it was. Polymaths include the scholars and thinkers of the Renaissance and Enlightenment who excelled at several fields in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the arts. In the Italian Renaissance, the idea of the polymath was allegedly expressed by Leon Battista Alberti, a polymath himself, in the statement that a man can do all things if he will. Leonardo da Vinci is often used as the archetypal example of a polymath. I think, who is, I want to look up polymaths alive today. We have Natalie Portman. Interesting. Actress, director, dancer, psychologist. Okay. Will Wright. I did not know that Mae Jemison, a medical doctor, engineer, and astronaut. Jemison also acted in a Star Trek episode. That is so cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I guess, maybe. But I'm a huge lover of math, science, engineering, technology. Technology, I'm slowly getting into, but I do actually have a book that I should read because I've had it on my shelf forever. It's The Hacker's Mind. And basically, it's just like how to like deconstruct problems. And that's what I love doing. I like going through everyone seems to have like a common issue with something, and I kind of want to take it like the granular, like line by line, like where is everyone kind of getting caught up on this. But so someone said that Sarah Schauer is my favorite polymath, and while that's flattering, I have about 40 more years and a couple inventions and pieces of work I would need to publish. But someday, maybe it'd be funny to have a comedian polymath. So maybe I should, get back into stand up and then writing. Oh, I really want to write. This is still the warm up part, guys. But I realized I love being 30 like so much. It's wild, but I want to start to, weirdly enough, develop the skill of speaking in riddles, because a riddle is the ultimate intersection of art and science. It's a poetic equation, And so if I can make things incredibly transparent, that means that I could probably also make them incredibly opaque, but not like, hard to understand or ambiguous in the way that people will say one thing and mean the other because they're too afraid to express their actual feelings. If I were to create a riddle, I genuinely want you guys to be able to solve it and understand it and have fun and it be like meaningful. Because I think that would be such a fun thing to do, like speaking in riddles, because then it would just be math and poetry at the same time. And I adore both of those, And I just think that would be cool. If I were to discover anything that would be contributed to any sort of... Well, the thing is I have been working on the physics of near-death experiences for a while now. And everyone's like... And the thing is I am in neuroscience and... Well, I'm studying it for fun right now, but a lot of people are like, but with near-death experiences, people are clinically brain dead. Yes. However, I'm checking the physics of the situation, because if you listen to everyone's sort of accounts of what happened when they had a near-death experience, they're always floating over someone who's attending to them, right? Which is like and I want to know if they're on the right or left side, because I'm sorry, there's actually so much that I've written down, but I really, if you go to UVA, please, could you ask the physics department to go over to the perceptual studies department and ask them to get in on the near-death experiences, because I think they're focusing so much on the the neuroanatomy of it all, like with the central nervous system, like what's happening. And I want them to listen to all the experiences and be like, okay, so when they're describing what happened, sure, it sounds, far out, but all of them are describing the same sort of phenomenon, And I also now I'm at the part in studying for near-death experiences where I've gotten to anti-gravity muscles, like ones that kind of keep you stabilized. But and so there's a part in near-death experiences where people always describe snapping back, and I think that that's when gravity hits them, and so it's just a whole lot of stuff. And I've been doing some math about it. I don't know. I'm also reading the book Is Math Real by Eugenia Chang, who is my favorite mathematician, right alongside Francis Su, who wrote it's like the Mathematics for Human Flourishing. Such a good book. But Is Math Real? Excited to get into it. So I would love to be considered a polymath someday. I think that again, that would take about 40 years, just because I'm kind of taking the long way around when I read, I'm just hopping around, I guess but I guess that is very Renaissance-like. But yeah, it is a goal. So I guess I do have a long-term goal now, which is really cool. But yeah, we are going to talk about the nonchalance epidemic. So this is the part of the episode where we all, we've warmed up. We've kind of, actually, what else is happening with me? I started wearing compression socks. So fun. And now my feet don't get cold anymore. So that's cool. What else am I doing? Yeah, I've just been taking copious amounts of notes. I am doing a part 2 on how to study because I really want to cover like a lot of different like key points about like highlighting and how to pace yourself. Because with the how to study episode, you really do have to think of it as like the same sort of principles as going to the gym. Because when you're studying, you're going to, the mental gym. Knowledge is dense and different. Topics have different density. Like if it's more academic, it's going to be incredibly dense, and that's going to be your very weighty weights, And so a lot of people, like when you talk about like how to study, you're always like, you tell people to take breaks and they're like, oh, I don't need a break. And you're like, oh, that's funny. Because the thing is it apply it to like a sort of gym environment as well. Like if someone is working out and, you're just a trainer trying to help out, you're like, hey, so in between sets, you should like probably take a break just to give your muscles time to relax. And what if they said like, oh, no, it's totally fine. And the thing is so if you're studying, every 30 to 45 minutes, you should take like a break, and that there's nuance with that. Not like go on your phone, because the thing is even if you're on your phone, you're still passively taking in a whole bunch of information, so that would not be considered a break. Just like a walk and stuff, and having more protein, because protein supplies like the necessary amino acids to make neurotransmitters, especially for like attention and focus. So much like gym bros, you really should increase your protein intake. As for which protein you should like whey or like soy or whatever, that is your personal discretion. I don't want to get like too nitty gritty, but research for yourself. And then also what I was talking about with like thoughts being disconnected from feelings is that in terms of like how the nervous system is like laid out, what's between thoughts and feelings is movement, like your motor cortex. So the thing is a lot of people, and in our society, right, we're afraid, we're uncertain, and fear will lock you into place, right? And so if you're focused, like I talked about, like how to develop a sense of self and like self-worth, is that if you're constantly locked into place, right, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system obviously overlap at like a whole bunch of points, but it's mainly in your neck, right? And so if you're constantly adding new thoughts and it's like overwhelming you, locking you into place, that would kind of imagine like a pressure valve in your neck, right? Where there's like, there's, I was going to say a lug nut. No, what is that thing? Screw, synonym. No, not in slang. No, fuck. Oh my God. No, it's getting, no. Bolt. Sorry. I don't know why I couldn't think of bolt. But like if you think like a bolt, right, in your neck, and every time you add new thoughts, but you don't move, right, it's like kind of like manually tightening the bolt. And so then movement gets more restricted, right? And so, if you were to think about like what would be considered the wrench to loosen that bolt in your neck, is that the arm of the wrench, technically, I guess, would be interpreted as your body. So if you want to loosen that bolt, you have to move your body. And so if you loosen the pressure of the valve, right, and now pressure, like feeling is going, you can, up and down your body. It's a two-way, like it's not really pressure, but yeah, it's a lot of things. It's like now sensation and feeling can like go up to your head, and your head can influence your body. And so it's how to think about it, why you need to move. And that doesn't necessarily mean exercise. But if you're prone to excessive worry or rumination, you should be moving your body, because if you don't, right, with the how movement is influential, it'd be like tying a tourniquet around your neck and being like, why can't I feel my feelings? Well, the purpose of a tourniquet is to cut off sensation, feeling, blood flow. And so if, your muscles are tight in your neck, right, that corresponds to what's happening with your nervous system, right? And it's like causing strain, tension, all this stuff, and it's kind of locking you into place. So just kind of like wiggling, dancing, moving, stimming, exercising, going for a walk, just to kind of like loosen that bolt. And obviously, please run this by your therapist. This is a massive oversimplification of the nervous system, but it's just something to consider if you're like, why are my thoughts disconnected from my feeling? Do you have a tourniquet on your neck? Yeah. So that's just something to think about. We're going to talk about the nonchalance epidemic, and I'm going to drink some water.
This week's episode of Schauer Thoughts is sponsored by Quince. Father's Day gifting is always the same story for me. Socks, more socks, grill tools, a grill, repeat. This year, I wanted to do better. I found Quince, and they made buying a thoughtful gift easy. Quince has all the pieces dads actually want to wear, like organic cotton silk polos, European linen beach shorts, and comfortable pants that work for everything from weekend hangouts to nice dinners. The best part? Everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury pieces without the crazy markups. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. What'd I get my dad for Father's Day? I got him the European linen cotton stitch quilt. I was going to get him some of their incredible linens, but I do know that he has some gnarly toenails. And while he deserves nice things, I don't think that I would. So I got him a quilt, and it is fabulous. For the dad who deserves better than basic, Quince has you covered. Go to quince.com/shower for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/shower to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/shower.
So this is, if you are naturally nonchalant, again, this is not an attack on you. This is kind of a commentary on those TikToks we've been seeing where it's like, oh, I have to act nonchalant, and it's like to attract people. Now, I understand, again, if you act nonchalant as a method of self-preservation, or like how I just said, like if you're kind of prone to worry or anxiety, especially in like public spaces, and, you know, any sort of thing to protect yourself, I completely understand, and protect self-preservation. The thing is self-preservation methods, preservation kind of like freezes something, a structure in place in order to maintain like integrity of the thing that you're preserving. So it's a more of like there's different types of self-preservation, but like freeze responses or like acting nonchalant, aloof, right? It's a lack of movement. It's a lack of affect. It's a lack of warmth. And so it will come off as cold or uncanny. Now, again, if that is your intent because, you know, you want to, you know, you're worried about like people judging you, perceiving you, and all this stuff, then that makes sense. But in terms of to make it entice people to come towards you, it's actually incredibly counter-effective. It's not like it doesn't work at all. Separately, I have seen like a lot of conversations online from like sapphics who always talk about like not being hit on, and I totally understand that. Especially there's like a lot of various reasons, like weird reasons, and then there's like valid reasons, and then there's like sometimes occasionally you'll see someone who is like, why am I not being hit on? And then you'll go to their like Instagram or TikTok and they're surrounded by like 7 people every time they go out. And I want to be like, if I had to guess, it's because like this is evolutionarily threat level 10. You know, in group versus out group, it would take someone really, really ballsy or wasted to approach you in a group of your friends and be like, hi, I love you. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, and then, you know, if it's just a whole lot of nuance. So if you're like, I'd like to be hit on, what would really help is just kind of doing your own thing. I mean, hang out with your friends. I love that you have community. I love that you're surrounding yourself with a group of people that you want to go out with. That is incredible, right? But like, if you would like to be hit on, it may help to stray a little bit from the group, you know, make a couple laps occasionally. But that's what I try to do. And also, if you guys just FYI, if you ever see me out at a gay, queer event, sapphic event, and you're like, oh, Sarah probably doesn't want to be bothered right now, that is completely 100% wrong. I do enjoy talking to people. It's like my fatal flaw. However, I will say, if you have been drinking heavily, if you're going to approach me outside, approach from the side. Don't talk to me straight on. And that's, I value you deeply, right? And I think that you're incredible, but the smell can be a bit triggering. But I want to talk, especially if you're autistic or if you have a book recommendation or like a fun fact. Please feel free. But yeah, we're going to get into the nonchalant epidemic of it all. And why I say epidemic is, so I have talked about in the past that emotions are contagious. Why I think that the male loneliness epidemic was improperly named is because no, you can't, they're all kind of isolating. But with nonchalance, I guess, is like, the thing is nonchalant reads as no emotion. And so it's hard to, I guess, but it's more like people saying, oh, nonchalant is the way to be. And so it's like catching on. So I guess it is in the realm of infectious disease, quote unquote. Not really. I think the self-preservation people, you have a point. I think people with flat affect, you have a face. And I think the people who are like, I'm going to be nonchalant and it's going to be really attractive to people, you do not we're not. Okay. But yeah. So nonchalant, just for everyone, because I do like to go through synonyms, right? Of a person or manner, feeling or appearing casually calm and relaxed, not displaying anxiety, interest, or enthusiasm. Synonym: calm, cool, unconcerned, collected, composed, airy, indifferent, unemotional, blasé, dispassionate, detached, apathetic, casual, offhand, laid back. And so the thing is detached, apathetic, which, so like I said, with nonchalant, like self-preservation methods do freeze you in place. And so apathy is kind of associated with a lack of warmth. Empathy and compassion, well, compassion has an overarching, it's like an umbrella. And underneath it is sympathy, empathy, and pity. And I've talked about that before briefly in like terms of how autistic people, we try to empathize way too soon. We actually need to help people reestablish ego, and ego is not inherently bad to have all the time, especially if it's like very centered. If you think about like a dartboard, right? If you center yourself, like you are in an elevated like position off the bottom of the dartboard, but you're not at the top, right? It's like ego is just kind of, a sense of self, just kind of general movement and position in the world. Now, if it gets inflated, right, and you view yourself as above people, then that is where it becomes an issue. And even if you view yourself as beneath people, that actually may become an issue because we hit like perpetual victim territory and then the cycle kind of continues, right? But yeah, so with nonchalance, there's also, I did want to talk about, it's interesting with the LGBTQ, we have so many terms. I mean, I know that nonchalant is not constrained to the LGBTQ, but we also have like gay panic. And the thing is with gay panic, this is something I've talked about before because I love like the emotion of it all, is that a lot of people do panic when they see someone attractive and they're gay because they don't know how to approach, right? They're like, am I being annoying? Like, is this like what people do? Especially if you're like more new to the LGBTQ. But I will say, if you want a dead giveaway for someone who is not panicking but yearning, right? The visual cue for yearning is rocking back and forth, right? And so that's not rocking side to side and not hopping around on, like each foot that could be, they got to pee, right? Or if they're moving their hands a lot, that's not yearning. They likely are stimming or anxious, but like yearning is front to back movement. So if you're like, I thought I was quite suave and smooth, and you're rocking back. And the thing is you're like, oh, now I'm self-conscious about that. Don't be self-conscious about that. I think that is, for lesbians specifically, I know that we always talk about like yearning and sapphics yearn deeply. We all yearn. So like, it's kind of just honestly a cultural thing. So like, if you're like, oh, it's bad to yearn. No, yearning is the sapphic experience. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So what kind of does annoy me about this is like people trying to be more mysterious. And now the thing is I, again, did talk about like the best fiction books. For a genuine mystery, you need an inciting event. And if you consider the inciting event, you standing in the corner with flat affect, arms crossed, rocking back and forth, that is not what would kick off a novel, and you're like, well, I'm not trying to be. Well, the thing is you're not, if we were kind of comparing what it means to be nonchalant to like an open book, you're not even a book with text in it, because the thing is nonchalant, there is nothing to read. So like, it's like, there's almost no, like you would flip through the pages and be like, okay, so what is this? And so if you're like, I'd like to be mysterious, the thing that will read as most mysterious is you being your genuine, authentic self. Now, if someone can handle that or not is like up to that person. But if someone can't handle you being authentic, then that's probably great to know that ahead of time. And if you're like, oh, well, I'm too much and I'm scared, I understand, maybe wanting to dial it back. Like, that's totally, completely 100% your choice. But, it being yourself is incredibly mysterious, as truth is stranger than fiction. But yeah, and write what you know. And if you know your truth and you want to write a mystery novel, then just be authentic. Okay, so yes. So the nonchalant epidemic, there is this article I did want to read. I will link it below. The nonchalance epidemic, why we're so afraid of caring. In this generation, the word nonchalance has become a shield, a way to not be vulnerable, overly invested, or needy. This culture of acting nonchalant can be seen in college life and dating, where showing any kind of emotion or care feels like a risk. And so like I did say earlier, like nonchalance is like a coldness, like a lack of warmth. And what's interesting about like care and, like I said, compassion is that most of those emotional inputs, like every emotion has like a sensory input. But when it comes to care, right, that's largely communicated with body and touch. And I understand if you're like, I wasn't hugged as a kid. That does not mean you're unlovable, but not by a long shot. But so like to communicate care, there needs to be some sort of movement. But yeah, so we have become so obsessed with acting like we don't care, which leaves us nothing but being disconnected from other people. And like I said, disconnected from your body, actually, which is something we need to work on, I guess, in like Western therapy. But also, here's the thing. To communicate types of compassion, right? Pity, empathy, sympathy. There needs to be, there usually is some touch involved, but also there's another aspect in thought, right? So like careless means thoughtless, so if I talk about my parents labeling me the forgotten child, that's actually worse than not loving me. They haven't even gotten to the point of caring, right? If they don't like thinking about me, they don't even like caring about me. So thinking and acting in unison is how you communicate heat, warmth. I understand if you're like, I'm scared, I'm kind of locked into place, I will try your shimmy wiggle method, and I appreciate that. But don't rush yourself. Just be kind of become aware of these things. Yeah. So the word nonchalance comes from the French nonchalant, which means being careless or indifferent. It goes back to the Latin root calere, meaning to be warm. Yeah, which shows how the word evolved to mean emotional detachment or lack of warmth. Yes. Also, like, if you'll notice me with not notice my compression socks, but like if you don't move as much, right, like parts of your body do get incredibly cold. So yeah, there has to be some movement and heat and warmth, yes. But yeah, that's not saying that like, oh, if you have like restricted movement, then you can't be warm. No, like it's just, you could just straight up move your face and like a smile and you're like, well, I'm not smiling at anyone for no reason. I totally understand that. I'm saying if method to attract, if you're self-preserving, I completely get that. But if you're like, I have not moved a muscle, I have not smiled, I have not moved my eyes, and you're like, why are people not coming to get some of this Kit Kat bar? It's because it's actually registering as incredibly cold. But yeah. So in college, people have started to believe that showing too much interest, in college, people being nonchalant often seems like a survival mechanism because we're all trying to just navigate through new people, new responsibilities, and new environments. And the fear of being too much or too involved can at times outweigh the desire to have a genuine connection. Yeah, the thing is though, everyone there is new. And so similar to if this was an audition for American Idol, like I understand if if you're moving to a college or like you're going to college, and I understand commuters, you're brand new there. Like it's a different environment. So a good first impression does have to leave some sort of impact. If you're like, oh, this is too much. No, everyone is about to be too much. In any sort of way. This is now your time to shine. It's like, American Idol. You show up day one and you want to leave an impression, right? The first day of auditioning for American Idol is not the day to be nonchalant. It's the day to show out, right? And so when you've gotten acquainted with everyone is when, they start filming the contestants being their normal selves. But if you're trying to leave a first impression, as someone who's moved, oh my God, so many times in my life, you don't have a past with these people. The future with them is not promised. Now is the time to live in the present and make a warm first impression. If you're self-preserving, again, this is fine. Yeah. For many people, this becomes evident in dating. One of the classic scenarios includes someone texting back too quickly, which has changed in an unspoken game of playing it cool. Other rules include don't seem too excited, don't reveal too much, don't give so much attention. But beneath all this lies an undeniable fear of rejection, the fear of being too vulnerable, and the fear of showing that we care. Of course, if we show interest and the other person doesn't reciprocate, does that make us a fool, a joke? No, it doesn't. Because the thing is I've already done an episode on, laughter as the best medicine. If someone, the difference between ridicule and banter, and I actually really hope that you guys are incorporating this, is that ridicule is if someone makes a joke about you. Oh, it's just a joke, but they've never respected the thing that they're joking about. They've never respected you. They've never validated you. The only time it's considered banter is if you guys have validated each other, or like you've talked about the certain issue, like, if your sibling has passed away, like they were there for you when you grieved, or they're there for you with support. And then that's when they start, like maybe a casual dead sibling joke. And I know that sounds dark, but that's when it's banter, is when there's respect already established. But, the fear of rejection is very real in terms of evolution. Ostracism is a fear worse than death. However, we have developed more parts of the nervous system since that rule was first established, and we also are social creatures. However, we are living in a highly individualistic society. But yeah, so I understand that. And the fear of being too vulnerable, I do also understand that, because whenever out and about, like you guys, whenever I see you out in public, you're incredibly nice, warm, receptive. And I don't care if you start and going into like this long monologue about your special interests. That's what I am just dying to talk to someone who is passionate about something. You know what I mean? But I understand, like, some people really are just, I mean, I really don't mean to sound like a man. I really don't. But would it kill some people to smile? I understand. Okay, yeah. Making new friends in college at this point is already awkward enough, and adding a layer of trying to be nonchalant in the process makes it worse. People play it cool, even in casual conversations. They try not to show too much enthusiasm, always afraid of being perceived as overzealous. This leaves very little room for making a deep, authentic connection that makes friendships meaningful. Yeah, I was talking about this with on my Instagram story as well. I run everything by them. A lot of people try to be important. Now, I understand if in our culture, it's mainly like importance based, and that's like a hierarchical. You're trying to not, if you're needy, if you're important, right, you can ask for more stuff, right? And so a lot of, I guess, quote unquote important people, more popular, more stoic. If you're naturally stoic, love that. However, when it comes to importance in our society, all the positions are pretty much like predetermined. So you're always going to feel unshaky. Like you're going to feel like shaky in your position. Like, am I doing this well enough? Am I important enough? Have I reached the heights that I can reach at this new university, at this new job, and all this stuff? However, when I was talking about, maybe I want to learn the skill of speaking in riddles, a lot of people asked, why is that? And the thing is why try to be interesting, which is the other massive alternative in our society, importance-based or interest-based. And the thing is interesting is fascination. It's fascia, right? So it's something that connects on its own accord, right? Like fascia in the body, right? So, pursuing interests, right, and fascination and connecting points, it's stabilizing in and of itself, even in pursuit, right? So like, even if you're uncertain of your position, you still feel stable and grounded, and like your choices, because they are very personal to you and you've invested in them and you're connecting things, right? You're finding greater meaning. So I understand if you're worried about, like, will I be deemed unimportant and a loser and ostracized? I personally, and I know that I'm not in college. If I was in college, but actually at this point in my life, I'm looking for people who are interesting, passionate, outspoken, loud, even polarizing, honestly. Yeah. So why do we do this to ourselves? It's part of its culture in this generation. Social media has become a place where I just slurred that. Social media has become a place that highlights the best parts of themselves and leaves out the messy emotional details that make being vulnerable seem like something to avoid. Yeah, I try. The curated, careless, and aloof version. I cry all the time because I did also grow up with a lot of you guys watching me. I became very aware of that. Like you guys are like, I've been watching you since 7th grade, and I'm like, oh shit. So like I'm like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and I want to study, and because I want to make up the time I lost from drinking. And here's the thing: is like being nonchalant, cold, careless. When I was an alcoholic, I achieved that, pretty numb, pretty disconnected from everyone. Was it fulfilling? Absolutely not. And now I'm genuinely passionate about things and happy, and it's very much the way to go. So yeah, let's go back to the whole nonchalanceness of it all. So there is this article that will be linked below, Anticipatory Anxiety, Bleeding Before You Are Cut. These two authors, they have a new book called Overcoming Anticipatory Anxiety. It's a self-help trilogy that takes aim at the anxiety we experience prior to contacting something we fear or abhor. Anticipatory anxiety is worry about the future, the fear that bad things might happen, or that you might become unable to successfully accomplish what you set out to do. It's the anxiety we feel when we are anticipating a difficult decision, action, or situation. It is how we feel when we buy into our own creative worry stories. It is expectation of distress accompanied by a push to avoid. Anticipatory anxiety seems to predict danger. It feels like a warning. We think of anticipatory anxiety as a third layer of fear. First, we can be afraid of something, like I'm scared of a bee. Second, we can be afraid of being afraid. This is sometimes called the fear of fear or panic. Think of this example, like if I see a bee, I might get so frightened I have a panic attack and then lose control or have a heart attack. That's like fear of fear. And then there's the third level of fear. We can be afraid of being afraid of being afraid. This is not as complicated as it sounds. It goes like this. I am miserable even thinking about camping next week because I might see a bee and have a panic attack, lose control, and do something crazy. Maybe I should cancel the camping trip. I would call that catastrophizing. Yeah, so it's the third type of fear is a powerful motivator of avoidance, catastrophic predictions, like having a panic attack, making a fool of yourself. It involves worry about the urge to avoid not only anxiety or panic, but also disgust, anger, shame, regret, humiliation, becoming overwhelmed, or any other unwanted emotion. Yeah, so I will link this below because I do want you guys to get into that. And if you're like, that's something I deal with, just something to again, be aware of. I don't want any of you to be like, there's things that are now fundamentally wrong with you. It's just kind of like being aware that it's becoming an issue. And I know that these are going to be more practical ways to address a huge societal issue. The thing is we live in a highly individualistic culture. The fact that we have individualistic emotions that actually make no goddamn sense. But yeah, so individualistic emotions where like we're prone to isolating ourselves, and that's because we also live in a culture of narcissism. Not saying that everyone is diagnostically a narcissist, but it's like more critical behaviors are kind of like accepted, like are more accepted in our society. So like I said in the beginning, there's also some people that are naturally nonchalant, and there are some conditions relating to it. And just because I like talking about the science of it all, this is if any of you, I really just kind of want to give you guys resources of like things you can look into, like culture of isolation, individualistic culture. Right. The thing is, however, if you fear being perceived, and like I've talked about, like the influence of smell in the past, right? If you perceive people online and you're like, oh, this is who this person is, remember, you're only taking in visual and like auditory like stimuli. So like you can't smell them. Smell is like the most polarizing sense. Touch, right, is so the thing is, it's only 2 of the main like 5 senses, 6 if you count intuition. So like even if you're like, oh, people are perceiving me, no, they only have like 1/3 of you. They have 33% of you, and anyone who's making a judgment call off of 33% of information of what you're like in real life is not making an informed judgment on you. Now, if you're going online and you're saying outright offensive things, then that requires little interpretation. But if you're worried about being perceived as like fundamentally to your core, like not worthy of life, that is not an accurate assessment. And so these are things that you should like look into. But this is just also something that I wanted to touch on. This is more of a hop around episode, but there's something called reduced affect display. What it is, signs, types, and dealing with it. It's a cognitive disorder that affects how a person perceives and reacts to stimuli. This can lead to problems with social interactions, work, and daily activities. People with reduced affect display may appear emotionless or uninterested in the world around them. In this is a blog post. We will discuss that reduced affect display is in its symptoms and how to deal with it. And so it does go through like, what it is, types of reduced affect, like constricted affect, detached affect, inhibited affect, masked affect, autistic people, a lot of people with trauma. This is actually something I don't know why I was so excited. A lot of people with trauma. No, but I'm saying if you feel like you have like very much reduced affect, you might want to look into this. But there's also signs and symptoms like monotone voice, lack of interest in activities, inability to connect emotionally, limited gesturing, emotional flatness, inability to react appropriately, no eye contact. And so every person with autism is like, is this about me? I think that this is something where your flat affect has now developed its own symptoms. Yeah. There's also negative aspects, reduced communication, reduced social interaction, emotional suppression, reduced engagement. But that is something that I very much have dealt with my entire life. And I will link that below. I'm not saying that everyone here who has flat affect, you have reduced affect display. It's incurable. You are not worthy of being helped, loved, or liked. No, that is absolutely incorrect at every single yes. But I did want to give you guys advice. When it comes to a systems approach to fixing society as a whole, we do have to place more emphasis on building community, which does involve, reaching out to people. I'm working on that with my therapist. Like I told you guys like a million times, I'm trying to work on stopping self-isolating, which I have been because I've been hanging out with people, specifically autistic people. Has it had some rough patches? Yeah. But the thing is I'm excited. I just really, really want community after reading about like movement and connection and heat and warmth, just in the physics of it all. Like really connecting to people is you don't need it to survive. But like in the most big, like you could survive, living in the woods for a very long time. Will it be peak survival? No. But so I'm saying I need to get out of the woods and into some people's hearts. But yeah, so it's just a matter of like giving and receiving, trying to get out of the yeah. So yeah, I want to give advice to people who are like, well, my main method of trying to attract people at the bar is acting nonchalant. And I would like you to comment in the comments below, how's that working out for you? You're like, I've had some people when they're completely wasted finally approach me. When they're completely wasted, finally approach you. And now I totally get that, right? Or like, the thing is I drank a lot because I couldn't connect with people. So who am I? The thing is this is like, I'm trying to give like practical advice. If you're like I said with the, moving, and so you can like feel your feelings. And this is a method to reach out. If you're naturally nonchalant and you want to keep it that way, I love that. I love that you're chill. You are so cool, and I appreciate that deeply. But here is some advice. It's going to sound weird. I'm not telling you guys to pick up smoking by any means. Absolutely not. However, I need to read I was researching. Smokers have actually perfected sort of small talk. And I know that a lot of you are like, I hate small talk. I totally understand it if it's meaningless. You can kind of think of it as like a subroutine. It's just like, kind of maintenance of life. But yeah. So this is not trying to convince you guys to smoke. This is if you want to be more engaging with people and you want to take off the pressure, right? After you do the thing of like you release the pressure valve, you start to, because the thing is the formula for pressure is force over an area, right? So if all the pressure is contained to your head, right, you get like horrible migraines, you're like locked into place, you're afraid. If you open up that valve, right, and diffuse the pressure, right, it's going to be less, like you're going to feel the pressure significantly decrease, and you're going to have, since you're already moving, you're going to feel more fluid and more like, chill. So try that. Try to move your body. Try wiggling. Try doing the anxiety cleaning. Such a good thing. A lot of people, whenever I talk about this, they're like, is this why I like cleaning when I'm anxious? Yes. And the thing is like, a lot of people are like, why do autistic people stim? It's like, why are the people who are locked in their head trying to release energy? It's because their body is trying to release energy. Yeah. So this is advice if you want to take some pressure off after you open that valve. Okay. So the time frame. Cigarettes usually last from 4 to 10 minutes. Both smokers know that the conversation has a limited time frame, so the pressure is off in that way. Now, I don't want you to pick up smoking, but if you are trying to, try to put yourself more out there, give yourself like a limited time frame of where like, okay, I'm going to talk to this person. And then at this point, like, even if the conversation is going well, be like, I'm going to go get some water or I'm going to go to the bathroom. Like if you give yourself like a time frame, now you have like, even if this person doesn't know, like a weight is off, right? You're like, okay, yeah, I could like circle back around, and that gives me time to think about like conversation starters. Like if I, want to keep the conversation going. Yeah. Also, when it comes to smoking cigarettes, it's looked down upon. So smokers have a humbleness to them. They share kind of understanding of ostracism. And so why I mention that is like, if another way to decrease pressure, right, take the weight off, is that you find people who are also in dark corners of the room, near the exits, kind of like continuously like huddled around like the drink place. Any people who are largely immobile, not with others, are there because it's like a safe place, or oftentimes I understand if you don't want to, in a normal everyday setting, you don't want to bother someone. But if you're specifically at like a mixer or like an event and this person showed up, but they showed up alone, look for the people who are stationary at like, exits, dark corners, away from speakers, right? Those people likely are desperate to talk to someone, okay? And so that they're the safest bet, right? If you deal with a lot of uncertainty and worry and you want to make a safe bet, those people who have not moved and they're not with anyone else, that's going to take the pressure off because they're also right where you are mentally, So it's, just go to, I'm not saying that it's shameful like smoking. I'm saying that you go to a smoking area to find smokers. So if you're very anxious and you don't want to put on this aloof nonchalance, but you want to be social, you want to connect, go to the areas that you would go to if you were incredibly anxious. So just be like, So that's 2 ways, actually 3 ways to decrease pressure, right? Movements, limited time frame, finding the people who are anxious and alone. Yes, that sounds like you're preying on someone, but no, you're trying to make friends. Yeah, so also a 4th way to decrease pressure. Smokers don't usually face each other head on, and if they do, they're a couple feet away. The distance is to not get smoke on the others, but you can also use that same tactic, especially if you're afraid of making eye contact. I understand, like a lot of you probably do know how to strike up a conversation with a stranger, but I think we need to be mindful that I and a large part of my audience, we're autistic, right? And so, there's a lot of neurodivergent people here, a lot of people who are socially anxious. I understand that lack of eye contact is like, if you can't, right, you could take the smoker approach, right? So, kind of approach someone, stand side by side, or kind of angle away. And so that's just a great way, like I've realized this, you kind of set yourself up if you go to talk to someone and you're talking head on, right? If you kind of angle away and you kind of like both kind of quote unquote like people watch together, if you have a hard time maintaining eye contact, it's totally like it's reading quite, I don't want to say normal, I guess normal if you glance at them and then you glance away, right? So that's a way to not have to like, I understand like when I'm talking to someone, I'm very mindful of what's happening in my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, I've been staring at them and now I got to look away. So decreasing pressure, all these are tips from a smoker. Do not pick up smoking. Yeah. Also, So there's also this less trapped feeling of when you don't face someone head on. You can, and if you're too close, right, like within a foot head on, this person does feel now cornered, especially if you went to the corner. Um, so be like more shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. Cigarette smokers also have to go outside. Vaping, actually, it depends on if you're in the South or not. What part of the U.S. you're living in. But no, sometimes you can smoke inside. But why I say this is, fresh air is less oppressive. So if, like I talked about, like, a building feeling stuffed, like there's more CO2, there's more smells, like if people are like in the same room and we're all kind of talking and we're all shuffling and we're all sweating and we're all young, dumb, and don't have deodorant on, right? And I'm not judging. But if you're conscious of, like, if you're worried about that and you want to feel genuinely more relaxed, go outside, angle away, do some shimmies, right? Time frame. And then, lack of eye contact. These are just ways to take the pressure off. Things to consider. There's so many moving factors. Okay. And then environment is also important to consider, as environment can also trigger feelings, especially when someone's overwhelmed. So like if you're autistic and you're having a meltdown, this is not, if you're actively having a meltdown at an event or you're trying to hit on someone, this is where we take a step back. We take a breath of fresh air, and if we must, Uber home or call a friend, right? But this is like, I'm just saying, go where it's cooler, where it's cold, where you can feel some ventilation, dimmer lights, just the places where that you would feel less stimulation, right? Away from the speakers, maybe have some food in hands. This is just a way to take, so there's like so many tips to take the pressure off, right? Or diffuse the pressure. And the thing is it's easier to connect when you are connected to your body and you have outs and freedom of movement, autonomy, like literal, figurative, psychological sense. But yeah, so that was just practical smoker advice. And I do this thing where when I go to an event, right, if I don't drink anymore, so I do all of these things, and I smoke. But don't pick up smoking. Is that I like to do drive-by compliments. And so like it's where I'm walking by someone, and I like to like, oh, I love your jacket. Oh, love your earrings. Oh, love your makeup. The thing is if you're gonna feel tempted to stop and talk to them, and I totally get that, and you might, and if that's totally your own thing. But if you kind of plant these little seeds of like positivity, and the thing is if they react negatively, they're like, who the fuck is this person complimenting my jacket? You kept it moving, so you didn't even see if they have an expression. So like it's just a way, if you plant enough positive like seeds everywhere, the thing is when one person, a couple people will always circle back around, right? That there are people here who like you but don't know you, right? So like a drive-by compliment is always great, especially if you're nervous, and you are kind of also helping set the vibe. And that's what I do. And also what I do is this is just something I've been doing because in real life I kind of, and I know that I'm chatting about this is my podcast. Okay, yeah. I have always, someone with autism, people kind of have talked to me like I'm stupid my entire life. So I imagine that happens to a lot of other people. But if someone ever recommends anything to you, especially a book or like an article, or they say something that's like, oh, that's interesting, make a visual effort to pull out your phone and write down what they said. I have a list going of like books, articles, literally, like, because I want someone to see me. I want people to see that what they said was noteworthy, right? And so like if someone's like, oh, you'd like this book, be like, I'm sorry, wait, can you repeat that? And then you write down like the title or whatever. Or if someone recommends something, try to like, especially specific, look it up in the moment, because that gives them the feeling that what they said was literally noteworthy. And if I'm feeling stupid when people talk to me, I imagine that other people feel like their intelligence is constantly like looked down upon. So it's just like a nice little thing. Drive-by compliments, always write down what people say. It's just nice gestures. And so I also have talked in the past about like smiling. Now the thing is with the nonchalance epidemic of it all is that there's not a lot of people mirror, not just neurodivergent people mirror, but like, if, like I said in previous episodes, laughter is contagious, like smiling is contagious. I have had people smile at me and my face has not moved all day. And so when I do smile, it's like one part of my mouth lifts and it's like the most awkward thing ever. But if there is something uncanny about someone who is not moving their face at all. And I understand self-preservation method, but if you want to throw in a couple smiles or like laugh without being too overwhelming, because then sometimes people will feel like they have to continuously laugh, but like like a nod and a smile, and you're like, this is Sarah, but laughter is rewarding. Your striatum and your substantia nigra, like this is like, it literally registers as a reward, right? So you're the person who's throwing out smiles, compliments, and writing shit down. You're telling me, and you're also like not approaching people head on, and you're like, from the side, hey, just want to say, love your jacket. And who does, and if you smell good, the thing is smell is the most powerful sense. I cannot stress that enough. So if you smell good, you showered right before this event, you could, best first impression ever. Seriously. Yeah. And, I understand that this is more like individual to individual, and there's systemically, capitalism has pretty much locked us into place, right? They feed us like grains of nutrients, they give us a pizza party, right? And then we're sustained for one day more. So this really is a huge, massive systems issue. I did take a very individual approach, but this is just something I wanted you guys to apply and think about and advice. And I know that a lot of you are genuinely want community and connection, and you're like, how do I do that? And I'm doing that with you. Oh, I really am doing that with you. And I kind of feel like I'm like literally DMing people on like Instagram and TikTok, and I'm like, hey, I've really admired you for a while. Would it be weird if, I know that you post a lot of book reviews. If you live in the, I do know that you live in the LA area, but that's only because you add hashtag LA to your, if you ever wanted to, maybe like hang out or like read a book together. I know that sounds, but the library is communal. And so, so I'm literally like reaching out to people at the age of 30 and being like, working on friendships. I'm not in college. I do sometimes feel like it because I am reading a lot, but I'm right there with you. And if you guys would like me to do a systems approach to nonchalance, that could be, that would just be a large, actually, I could do that. I would have to really outline that because we'd really have to, we could get into third spaces, and then we could talk about third culture. What am I saying? I was about to talk myself out of that. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're nonchalant, if you have flat affects, I understand and I appreciate you, and I love your face, and I love that about you. But yeah, these are just tips and tricks. And if you have, all the resources will be linked below. Please subscribe on my YouTube, like and subscribe, and then rate me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you guys also, if you have any topics you'd like me to discuss more in depth or nuance, then always feel free to comment that. Comments are like my favorite part. So thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Schauer Thoughts, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.